In wintertime, it can be more difficult to find sources of wood or flammables, but all you have to do is study whatever trees are in your environment. Right here, you can see you've got lots of goat's beard hanging from the trees. You also got great birch bark source, although they're few and far between here. It's more poplar. You can see you have a ready source there. And then over here, you look at that poplar. It's all peeled. It doesn't have many needles on the top at all. So you can tell, compared to the other ones, which do, it is quite dry for firewood. And you'll know from my last video, that's some of what I used. You can see the tops break off of the poplar, and that's what's causing them to decay, fall down, dry out. Usually the weather conditions beat down through there, just like it would on a fence post, and then the tree begins to fail. And it provides nutrients, though, to the soil before it dies, and even after. The woodpeckers appreciate that. You can see here a perfect specimen of a dry poplar, right up to the top, where the top is broken, and right beside it, another one. So this is an area where there would be plenty of wood sources. You can even see where they're leaning up into the other trees. The trees that do fall on the ground, like we see here, tend to be waterlogged and wet because they're down in those elements. These poplar trees have been bumped and scarred with black knots, so they're not going to live long. Lots of the limbs have already fallen on the ground, so they have quite a short life. There's a nice grove of birch right there. And you see my dog, she's just loving it because the snow is all crusty, and she just loves rolling in it, scratching her back. She thinks she's a polar bear. Oh, took her shirt off because it's warmer right now. It's easier for her to walk. She's walking right on top of the snow. She's loving it. So things can hear me for miles. This little forest doesn't have the big trees that you would expect. This is a spruce tree, a young one. The partridge tend to love to roost in these, especially in the evening. Squirrels like them too, for the buds. And they have quite a long life and get to be quite large on the base. They last a lot longer than the balsam fir, which their life tends to be shorter. They grow quicker like the pine. Here is a larger spruce, towering. You can really see there lots of good little rabbit spots. And also because it's wet area where any of the waters from the springs and the rivers overflow, be a great place in the spring for fiddleheads. As is the case with the camera, sometimes it doesn't show the size unless you have something in comparison to, but there's a fairly big spruce here. And right next to it is a cottonwood tree that has grown humongous. And it's towering way up, and the woodpeckers, as you can see, they like to go up on those tops and peck and dig and see if there's any bugs in them, and usually there is. They love the water, so they tend to grow where it's wet. And they soak it up by the roots. You'll often see them in floodplains. So you can see the trees are quite resilient. This tree here has lost all its limbs on this side and been scarred at one time. There's lots of sap coming out of the tree. Many uses for that. It's like a gum. Some people will chew it. Some people will make glue out of it and tea. Just give you a closer look at that sap that's in the tree, and you can see that some of it ran on the warmer days already. You can see up there some new sparkles and gold. So there's lots of gum on this tree. Also lots of what I call goat's beard. Great to use for chinking in a cabin, fire source, many other things. You can see the bark on the cottonwood, how deep the grooves are. And it's quite artistic, actually. I apologize for the fog on the lens due to the conditions. It gives you an idea of just how beautiful some things can be. Works of art on their own. You can see lots of buds on this tree, and the partridge love these. As you can see, when the snow gets heavy, it bends the limbs over, so it's perfect. Rabbits love that. And the other great thing is, what I like, is when all the leaves and different things fall off the trees that didn't pass down through the fall, and create some quite nice art. Great opportunity for photographs. They create some art. Sometimes they look like creatures or butterflies. You can always see a pattern in them. And here's a great way to show you how a tree changes. Poplar, for example. When they start out, if you look at the top, and on smaller ones, the bark is fairly smooth. Of course, it has its darker areas where the limbs come out. And if a limb breaks off flat, flush with the tree, you won't see the limb, but you'll know that it's there, especially if you cut the tree. You'll see that grain of the knot. But as the tree matures, the bark gets denser, and you can see that here in the patterns at the bottom. It'll not be as dense as the cottonwood, but you can certainly see how it changes with age. You can definitely see here how crusty it is. Not only can you hear it, but you can tell by the animals that the coyote has walked through, and he only sunk in one spot. The lighting may not be very good for this, but here's another crossing of the coyote, and that would have been a day ago, because now it's covered, melted down, so he crossed here. Across the rabbit trails. Another limb has crossed the trail. Could not handle the weight of the snow anymore, and you can see in there where it broke off at the base. Here we have a couple of giant spruce. I don't think the camera will pick it up, but there's a big old squirrel nest up in there. So they're enjoying that tree. So not sure if the camera will pick it up, but you can see where the moose have gone through and cut off the tops. Some from the year before. The rabbits will come through and nibble on branches when they're down, and you'll see where the bark is gone. But they've been here. You'll see all the tops are just nipped off. They like those tender shoots. And there's a beautiful painting. Water from all the rain and through the creeks and riversides. It's overflowing in the meadows, so it's created a lot of water on top of previously frozen ice. And that's beautiful with the colors. Down in that little meadow. Beautiful little spot. Much more relaxing without the crust of the snowshoes making a noise. Beautiful. Nice place for birds to hang out in the springtime. And speaking of birds, there's the little partridge trail gone down through there. And obviously they thought the same thing. So it was hanging out down there. Cool. You can see where the partridge was again, and then you can see where something startled it and it flew. The wing patterns there. I don't think the camera's going to pick it up due to the sky. It's rather shadowy. But he was here and took off. Just show you the spruce needles, how they're different than the fir. They are more rigid and pokey and circular around the limb, as you can see. It smells really good. Sometimes you'll get what they call a cat spruce, which doesn't. It smells kind of skunky. If I see a balsam tree, I'll show you the difference. When I was growing up, these would make wonderful fishing rods. Just look at this. It's quite bendable. It's large at the bottom, tapers out at the top, and you don't have to worry. It's great. You make it any length you want for smaller creeks, etc. The other thing, along with the new birch shoots, these will be great for making a pair of decorative snowshoes. I've done that before, just to hang on your wall or out on your porch. You have to be careful though how you bend them, but see, you can already tell. I don't have the wire with me, but you already can see the shape. And all you do is do an outside layer with a couple of branches, and then you can weave the smaller ones in between, and they're like the old-fashioned snowshoes. So there you go again. You can tell how much overflow there's been from the rain. I guess it's some more water fields down in the low-lying areas. It looks like I have another roadblock here. I have to figure out a way to get around it. Wasn't too bad. I lifted them up, a couple of them, and just went underneath. But you can really see where it's been windy and breaking everything up on the snow. Some just call it dirty bark. I call it tree pee, where you'll see the snow is stained from the tree. I believe similar to the tannic acids and the saps in the tree. And when it rains and the snow lingers on it for a while and the branches fall or the tree drips, at least it's marking the snow. There are many plants and trees, shrubs that have been used to make dyes with in the years ago, so, and probably still now, but that's my belief. So that's a look at what I call tree pee. And here you see the needles of a balsam tree, very soft to the touch. And underneath, see, flat. There's not as many of the needles coming out on the bottom. So that's why they're used to make wreaths, etc. Because they easily stack on top of each other. They have different shapes, V's and straight lines to allow for that. And they also smell very good. You can see where the drops have frozen on the limb. It's pretty cool. I hope you're enjoying this little snowshoe hike, talking about trees. I have to say, I do appreciate the maple tree and the maple leaf in the fall and how it makes such great firewood. But in this part of our country, I have yet to see one. My favorite tree next, and probably foremost, would have to be the birch tree. Because no matter what the season, it's changing and beautiful. Its bark and its buds and its color changes. So that would be my favorite tree. So if you have a favorite tree, comment below. Tell me what it is. So here's to keeping it real, bringing nature and fresh air from my neighborhood into your home. I appreciate you watching. Don't forget, let me know what your favorite tree is. Love hearing from you. Also, check back previous videos where I'm asking about what your favorite tea is. I want to thank you all for joining me. And don't forget, click subscribe and nature will provide.